I think I'm probably like a lot of people in that I don't watch a lot of like regular broadcast television, but even still, over the last few months, the Pixel 10 commercials have been almost inescapable. I'm sure you've seen the commercial where they're comparing the iPhone 17 to vanilla ice cream. And then, of course, they're showing how the Pixel 10 is not vanilla and how it can do all sorts of other things. I'm sure you've also seen the early commercials for the Pixel 10 where they talked about how, if you buy a phone for a certain feature that's coming soon, but a year later it's still not there, maybe you should get a different phone. These have all been, I think, very clever and effective commercials, and it seems like they're working. We have fresh data coming from Counterpoint Research. The headline reads Google sees record single month Pixel sales in US during September of 2025. You guys know, because I've talked about it here on this channel, Pixel devices, really since they underwent this sort of rebrand with the Pixel 6, they've just been selling better and better and better, and they've been doing it with some interesting strategies. I mean, one obvious one I just mentioned is that they're investing a lot more into advertising. They're really trying to let people know Pixel phones exist, and here's what they're good at, and here's what they're for. But what are they advertising in every single commercial? It's AI features. It's things that a lot of people, maybe the vocal minority in the tech community, absolutely hate. They can't stand this stuff. But the more Google talks about it, the better their phones are selling. Google's Pixel sales in the US surged, 28% year over year in September, a single month sales record. Google's share in the $600 or higher price band rose to 6.1% in September. This is crazy, up from 0.1% in 2022. Now, keep in mind, the Pixel 6 came out in 2021. So we're talking about since the Pixel 7 came out, we are seeing a massive increase. And I understand you might say 6% is not that high. But when you're coming from 0.1%, that's a lot. That's a huge, huge gain. You can see this graph that they posted here where, in 2022, there was no line for the Pixel. 0.1%, you couldn't even see it. But now, here they are. They're beginning to eat out a little bit of that market share. And let's be real here. Apple is still utterly dominant. And Samsung is dropping. Okay, they're down to 12%. And Google, there they are sitting. They've got them labeled at 7% here, but they're creeping up on Samsung in terms of market share for the premium Android phones. And again, how are they doing this? They're doing it by touting AI features. Their hardware on paper, in reality, it's not as fast, right? They're not as fast as Snapdragon processors. And the vocal people on the internet talk about how that's just terrible and people shouldn't be buying these phones. And yet these phones are, I think, resonating with people. People see the really cool features, the things that Pixels can do that set them apart, and it is intriguing to people. Another facet of their success is that they are beginning to actually gain ground at the carrier level with the big three carriers. Google's share grew significantly at T-Mobile and Verizon during that period. Again, at that $600 or more price mark, at T-Mobile, they're at 6.5%, up from 0.1% in September of 2022. Verizon has seen similar growth, up to 7%. AT&T not really making a whole lot of progress there. They're just at 2.3% market share, but at least at Verizon and T-Mobile, Google, it seems like they're learning how to play that carrier game a little bit better. They are just, let's be real, they're just doing the things that other phone OEMs are doing. They're advertising, they're doing stuff with carriers, they're making deals, and they're trying to sell their phones in a way that they really hadn't in the past. And I think one big advantage is that Pixel phones stand out. They are so clearly not iPhones or Samsung phones. They are doing their own thing, and that makes them different and it makes them interesting. This whole concept of trying to be the smartest smartphone, I think it's just an interesting way to go. They've got their own look, their own feel, and it's working. Now, I wish that we had a bit more information in terms of what phones were selling to what degree. All they tell us is that the Pixel 9a continues to sell quite well late into its life cycle. It's a great budget device. You can get it relatively inexpensive and you get a ton of really good Pixel features. You get a really, really good camera on a mid-range device. They say that the Pixel 10 Pro XL is the main driver for Google's year-over-year growth. I think A lot of us would love to hear how the folding models are selling. Are they actually selling any of these things or not? But unfortunately, we don't really have any data on that to share. Now, one thing I can quickly share with you is that Google is currently doing some pretty big sales pre-Black Friday, early Black Friday, however you want to look at it. But right now, the base model Pixel 10 is $200 off at $599. The 10 Pro is $250 off at $749. The Pro XL is $300 off at $899. And the Pixel 10 Pro Fold, which I've told you guys has impressed me a lot more than I thought it was going to. I've really enjoyed it. It's also $300 off at $14.99. I'm going to put links in the description and in the pinned comment down below so that if you want to jump in, you've been waiting, you've heard good things, you're seeing that they're selling well, there's momentum here, but you've been waiting for a sale. You don't want to spend full price on these things. Well, the time might be now because they are all pretty heavily discounted in the Google store and also, as you can see here, on Amazon.com. So this is another smart thing that Google has been doing, right? Kind of price your phones at a spot where you can do these discounts. And you might say, well, that means at other times they're making maybe more than they should be. And that's also going to be true. But it gives you that strategic advantage to be able to do these discounts and say, hey, $14.99 for the Pixel 10 Pro Fold. Compare that to where Samsung's at right now, and you are now like $400 cheaper. That's a pretty significant drop between those two. Although, yes, Samsung does run sales like this as well. So it's not just Google that does this. Don't get me wrong. But again, they are on sale. And this might be the time to jump in if you have been waiting. Guys, thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content like this. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.